All right, today we're talking about something that feels like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie, but it is very, very real. I'm talking about the global race to build and mass produce humanoid robots. And let me tell you, this isn't about what you've seen on screen. This is happening right now. And the stakes, they are huge. So when you think about humanoid robots, who comes to mind? For most of us, right, it's probably Elon Musk and Tesla's Optimus. But is that the whole story? Who's actually winning the race to get these things out of the lab and into our world? Well, the answer? It's probably not who you think. Look, while the US has made some mind-blowing leaps in technology, the country that's actually on the verge of commercializing these robots on a massive scale might surprise you. It's not Tesla leading the charge to mass production. It's China. So let's dig into how this is even happening. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll look at this new robot race and who the players are. Then, we'll get into why this is such a massive national priority for China. After that, we'll do a head-to-head comparison, USA versus China. We'll also cover the big obstacles in the way. And finally, we'll talk about the prize at the finish line. And trust me, it is absolutely enormous. All right, first up, the new robot race. For years, right, all the headlines have been about US innovators, especially Elon Musk. You've heard him say it. Humanoid robots could make Tesla a multi-trillion-dollar company. But here's the thing, and it's a big one. There's a massive difference between a flashy prototype that looks cool on stage and actually mass-producing a product that works. And that's really the crucial point here. Listen to this from Andreas Braschel, a partner at Horvath. He says, China is currently leading, while the United States is still in the early stages of commercializing humanoid robots. So while the US is still figuring out the commercial side, China's already gearing up for mass production. We're talking several companies planning to ramp up as early as 2026. They are just moving faster right out of the gate. So that brings us to the big question. Why? Why is China pushing so hard and so incredibly fast on this? Well, it's not just for bragging rights. For Beijing, this has become a matter of strategic necessity. It really boils down to three main things. First up, demographics. China's facing a serious problem. Their workforce is shrinking because the population is aging and birth rates are dropping. Humanoid robots, they're seen as a potential fix for that labor shortage. Second, you've got economic growth. This tech is a whole new engine for their economy. And third, of course, is global competition. This is a major battleground in the tech rivalry with the United States. And that's really the core of their entire strategy. It's not just speculation. Carel Elo over at McKinsey basically confirms this, saying these factors have combined to make humanoid robotics a top-tier national priority. And that's what's fueling this incredibly aggressive push. Okay, so let's put these two tech giants head to head. How do they really stack up against each other? Because it's a classic matchup of totally different strengths and strategies. And when you break it down, the different approaches are crystal clear. You could almost think of it like this. The US has the edge in the brains of the robot. We're talking superior AI, autonomy, all those advanced algorithms. US companies love vertical integration, controlling everything from the software to the hardware to squeeze out every bit of performance. But China, they're playing a different game, leaning into their manufacturing muscle. They have an unbelievably deep supply chain, a huge cost advantage, and, of course, a ton of government support with subsidies. And let's be clear, that supply chain is China's superpower here. It's a huge deal. Ethan Key from Counterpoint Research points out that this manufacturing ecosystem lets Chinese companies build these incredibly complex machines way more cheaply than anyone else. That gives them a massive advantage when it comes to scaling up production. But hold on, it's not a done deal by any stretch. China's path to dominating this space has some pretty major hurdles that could definitely slow them down. So what are we talking about? Well, there are three big ones. First, a huge vulnerability. They really depend on high-end chips made in the US, the actual brains of the robots. Second, their AI. It's just not quite there yet when it comes to dealing with messy, unpredictable, real-world situations. And finally, even with all their advantages, the cost to build one of these things is still sky high. And yeah, that cost is a massive barrier. Just think about this. Right now, a single advanced humanoid robot can set you back anywhere from $150,000 to $500,000. For these to be everywhere, in factories, stores, maybe even our homes, that price has to drop. I mean, it has to come way down to even begin to compete with human labor. This intense national push has basically kicked off a modern-day gold rush. Get this, there are now over 150 companies in China all trying to build humanoid robots. And you know what happens when you get that much hype and that many players all jumping into the same space? you get the risk of a bubble. And that's exactly what experts are worried about. The key thing here is that the public hype, the perception of what these robots can do right now, is way ahead of the reality. And that gap between the hype and the actual tech creates a super risky environment. So risky, in fact, that Chinese regulators are already starting to sound the alarm. So, with all these challenges and risks, you might be wondering, why is everyone racing so hard? Well, it's because the prize at the finish line isn't just big, it's world-changing. Okay, get ready for this number. According to RBC Capital Markets, the global market for humanoid robots could hit $9 trillion by 2050. Let that sink in. $9 trillion. That's not some small tech market. That is a fundamental pillar of the entire future global economy. And the projections? They suggest China is on track to grab the lion's share of that incredible prize. Some analysts are predicting China could control over 60% of this massive market. If that happens, it would absolutely cement their role as a global tech superpower. And look, this isn't some far-off fantasy. This is happening now. Take a company like UBTech, which is publicly traded in Hong Kong. They're already targeting 5,000 units in 2026, and then doubling that to 10,000 in 2027. The ramp up to mass production, it's already starting. So here's the bottom line. While the US might have the lead in advanced AI right now, China is leading the charge to actually get these robots into our factories and eventually into our daily lives. Now, this race is far from over, but that early lead in actually commercializing the tech, that belongs to China. And that leaves us with a really critical question. As these robots start walking into our world, who is going to be the one writing the rules for our robotic future?